Well, this is the best air cooler I've ever had on my test bench. Howdy guys, Ponchato here, and today we'll be taking a look at the NH-U12A from Noctua. If you've built a computer before, you've almost certainly heard of Noctua, but for those of you out of the loop, Noctua is a high-end PC cooling brand known for two things. One, incredible performance, and two, awful colors. At least they're distinctive. So the NH-U12A is Noctua's latest tower cooler, running with two of their recently released NF-A12x25 fans, and comes in at just under $100 US. That's 2 or 3 times more than a typical CPU cooler, so we'll see in a bit if it lives up to that price tag. Spoiler alert, it does. It's compatible with AM4, LGA1151, and LGA2066, and Noctua has a reputation for continuing to support even ancient coolers with updated socket mounting kits. For example, today, in June of 2019, you can get an AM4 upgrade kit for the NH-U9, a cooler released in 2005. I can't even remember what I was doing in 2005. Anyway, the U12A comes in at 158mm tall, which will fit into the vast majority of mid and full tower cases. With offset heat pipes, the front fan is also kept completely clear of the forward RAM slots, so RAM clearance is unlimited in the front. On a quad channel motherboard, RAM clearance is 42mm in the back with the fan in its normal position. If your case allows cooler clearance above 158mm though, you can mount the rear fan higher to make room for taller memory. There's also plenty of clearance from the first PCIe slot to make room for thick graphics cards. When it comes to TDP, it's a little more complicated. Based on my data, the U12A should be able to handle around 220 watts. Noctua, however, goes way more in depth. They specify whether or not each of their coolers is compatible with practically every CPU that's been released in the last decade. So no specific TDP numbers, but arguably more pertinent information. Like all of Noctua's packaging, the NH-U12A comes in a very nice and well-organized box. The accessory box has a label which shows the contents and which parts go to which sockets. Inside you have the 3 instruction pamphlets for AM4, LGA1151, and LGA2066. Noctua's instructions are clear and well illustrated, so even a new PC builder won't have any trouble following them. Besides that, Noctua puts all the Intel mounting hardware in one bag and AMD hardware in another, so you don't have to go digging around for the right parts. They include a PWM Y-splitter and 2 low noise adapters that limits the fan's RPM if you aren't able to control fan speeds with your motherboard. A tube of Noctua's NT-H1 thermal compound and a Phillips head screwdriver are also included. The heatsink itself is similar in size and shape to most other tower coolers, but has 2 defining features. The first is that its heat pipes are offset toward the back to keep the front fan clear of the RAM slots, and the second is that it has 7 heat pipes, more than any other cooler I've reviewed, and more than most coolers on the market today. That'll allow for a significant amount of heat transfer from the processor. On that subject, the base plate of the U12A is polished to a near mirror finish. Very nice stuff, Noctua. On most coolers, the fans are practically an afterthought, with most of the work going into the design of the heatsink. Not so with the U12A. The 2 included fans are Noctua's latest and most advanced 120mm fans ever, the NF-A12x25. Noctua spent years developing these fans, and even the plastic they make the fan chassis with was a focus of their efforts. They use Noctua's proprietary SSO2 bearing, which is one of, if not the, best on the market. The fans are rated from 450 to 2000 RPM, and with a low noise adapter, the max RPM is reduced to 1700. A slight detail here is the minimum speed they list is at a 20% PWM duty cycle, to account for motherboards that can't send PWM signals lower than that. I haven't run into a motherboard with that issue in probably 8 years, so for the rest of us, these fans can completely stop below about 5% speed. They also include extremely soft corner pads, so what little vibration they do produce won't transfer to the rest of your computer. Like everything else with this cooler, installation is top-notch. On AM4 systems, you use the stock backplate and start by putting down the 4 spacers over the mounting holes. After that, the mounting arms, which kinda look like they go on upside down, get screwed down on top of the spacers. Next, you put a dab of thermal paste on the processor, pop off the plastic cover protecting the base of the heatsink, and set the heatsink down. After that, you alternate tightening down the screws so the cooler stays level over the processor and doesn't bend anything. With the heatsink tightened down, you just clip on the fans, plug in the Y-splitter, and it's good to go. A minor gripe here is the screws in the crossbar are a little hard to get started, but once the threads grab, it's an easy process and the final mounting is very secure. But now let's get to the fun part and look at some benchmarks. First up, idle temps. The U12A's fans can completely stop, and at idle that does make it completely silent. That also means it's going to sit at a pretty high temperature. It hit 23.5 degrees above ambient in my testing. If you're concerned about idle temps though, running the fans at about 500 RPM is still inaudible and will bring down the temperature pretty significantly, especially if your case doesn't have strong airflow. And now the idle noise levels. Because the fans can stop, the U12A is completely silent. As I mentioned before, running the fans at 500 RPM or less will still result in basically no noise, so if you're putting the U12A on a significantly hotter processor like an overclocked 2700X, it'd be worth it to keep the fan spinning even at idle. Now here are the load temperatures with the coolers running at their maximum RPM. Here you can see the U12A's dominance. Despite being a single normal-sized tower cooler, it lands right in line with 240 and 280mm liquid coolers at 32.1 degrees above ambient. The next closest air cooler is the Fumo Revision B from Scythe, which is a dual tower cooler that's a good bit wider and deeper. It's extremely impressive how much heat the U12A can dissipate in such a small package. These are the noise levels under load. Owing to the dual fans and 2000 RPM max speed, the U12A can get decently loud at just under 50 decibels. However, volume alone doesn't paint a complete picture of how noticeable sound is, and Noctua spends a lot of time and effort on improving the quality of the sound. The NFA 12x25 fans produce a very tolerable noise that's a lot lower pitched and more consistent than other fans. In fact, I'd say other than the Ninja 5, the U12A is one of the least noticeable coolers under load. And finally, load temperature normalized to 40 decibels. I prefer comparing coolers like this because it accounts for differences in max RPM. For example, a poorly designed cooler that can spin its fans at 3000 RPM is going to run colder than a well-designed cooler limited to 800. Normalizing to 40 decibels levels the playing field. With that in mind, the U12A is right at the top of the list behind the two most specialized coolers I've tested. The Ninja 5 is huge and limited to 800 RPM for maximum silence. Cryorig's A40 is insanely loud at over 60 decibels and designed for maximum cooling. Besides those two, at 34.6 degrees, the U12A outperforms every other cooler I've tested, whether air or liquid, and most of them by a pretty significant margin. So this is the overall best air cooler I've tested and one of the best coolers I've reviewed, period. Noctua has a well-deserved reputation for consistently placing at the top of benchmark charts, and the NH-U12A is a strong continuation of that trend. Now the all-important question, should you buy this cooler? Like always, that depends. If you're putting together a $400 budget PC, it's probably best not to spend 1/4 of your budget on a cooler. But if you're putting together something mid-range or above, the NH-U12A is a very worthwhile investment. $100 for a CPU cooler is steep, no doubt, but coolers that come with this level of perks and performance are few and very far between. Between its dominance in straight-up cooling and noise performance, the U12A has a special ingredient. It's made by Noctua. Try to name another company that's released an AM4 upgrade kit for a cooler released before 2006. I'm legitimately curious. I don't think any other company even approaches the level of support Noctua provides for their products. It sounds a bit silly to call a CPU cooler an investment, but the NH-U12A actually is. And if you demand the best cooling and noise performance, you won't be disappointed. To get one for yourself, follow the link in the description. Hit subscribe and click that bell icon to get notified of new videos as soon as they're up. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I want to hear from you. Do you love or not love Noctua's color scheme? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped, and I'll see you in the next video. These colors though, these are whack. Come to think of it, Noctua does have fans with other colors now, I think. I should try some of those out. Noctua RGB when? I'm kidding, please don't do that.